Now to the sentimental journey into history with the flawless liftoff of the final flight for shuttle Atlantis. The mission marks the end of America's 30-year space shuttle program.
An estimated crowd of 1 million people gathering with eyes to the skies today, some crying, some cheering, and everyone in awe of the last time we will see this sight. News Channel 5's Michael Williams had a front row seat today. He joins us now live from Cape Canaveral. Michael?
Good evening to you, Shannon. The emotions here rose and rose and rose, climbing along with Atlantis on that twin pillar of fire toward the skies today. And then it was over. The memories, the scrapbooks are there. But now a great many people on the Space Coast must put away those scrapbooks and deal with the reality that the program after 30 years is done and their futures as uncertain as they've been in a long while.
All three engines up and burning.
Atlantis rocketed aloft one last time. A ship the likes of which you may never see again, powered by ingenuity, dedication, and the spirit of thousands who came to watch Atlantis take flight into the Florida skies.
Roger roll, Atlantis. Houston now control.
The astronauts rose early to be fitted for their turn in the history books. Commander Chris Ferguson, pilot Doug Hurley, and specialist Sandy Magnus and Rex Walheim. Their focus is always on the mission at hand, but their hearts reflected the end of this era in spaceflight. Before blast-off under clearing skies, Ferguson saluted all the people, tens of thousands of them, who had a hand in making and managing this flying machine and her sister ships.
Let's light this fire one more time, Mike, and witness this great nation at its best. The crew of Atlantis is ready for launch.
Emotions took flight as Atlantis did, and now the reality, a 30-year shuttle program that fueled the Space Coast, is over. It will hurt a lot.
We're going to be going through a tough time. Change is hard, and we're going to have more folks walking out the door here in a few weeks. And, you know, they were and are performing their job absolutely flawlessly right up to the end. And that
There are promises of commercial ventures and eventually new NASA spacecraft to put American astronauts back into space, though money, political, and public support are by no means guaranteed. Today, though, that future can wait as all eyes are on a ship and her crew marking the passage of a long chapter in spaceflight history. You may, and the country does, debate whether the shuttle program ever had enough merit, whether it ever met the launch goals it set out. In fact, it never did. It never launched dozens of times a year as they envisioned back in the late 70s. There were the risk involved, the Challenger and the Columbia accidents, questions about whether NASA put too much money and effort in one program instead of stretching for post beyond the moon and perhaps even Mars. Be that as it may, though, I've never met anyone when they're standing on this ground 3.5 miles from pad 39A does not have their pulse race when that flight leaps into the air. It is an inspirational sight, a testament to the ingenuity and skills of so very many people. And a lot of them gathered both here and around the Space Coast today. And Carolyn Schofield, my colleague, had her finger on that pulse of emotion.
NASA expected close to 1 million people across the Space Coast to turn their eyes to the sky today. And what a view it was as Space Shuttle Atlantis lifted off for one final time.
The crowd cheered as Atlantis cleared its last hurdle before launch, and they counted down for one final time. As Atlantis roared into the sky, the tears rolled down many faces around the Kennedy Space Center. It's the last launch of a space shuttle, the end of a 30-year chapter in NASA history. Sean Wilson works for Boeing, one of the many private companies in contracts with NASA.
It's going to be so long before we fly again, and you know, I've been on the program for 13 years, and it's just hard. It's hard to see it end.
NASA officials say this is not an end, just the closing of a chapter with more history yet to be written. Astronaut Dave Williams flew aboard the space shuttle on 2 missions and watched this final flight with hope for the future.
Now it's the end of the shuttle era, the beginning of the next era. And that's exciting. Beginnings are always exciting. And the U.S. as a major spacefaring nation has been a leader in space for the past 50 years. Let's look to the next 50 years where NASA will be setting bold endeavors going forward, doing things that no one's ever done before.
From here at the press site, we could only see Atlantis for just more than 40 seconds before she disappeared into the clouds. But what a 40 seconds it was. At the Kennedy Space Center, Carolyn Schofield, WPTV News Channel 5.
Only one thing is immediately certain about NASA and its future. if they could bottle the inspiration on the Space Coast today, they'd have more than enough fuel to launch a whole new fleet of ships. That's it from the Kennedy Space Center. I'm Michael Williams reporting live, News Channel 5. Back to you guys.
All right, Michael, before we let you go, it was one heck of a day today there on the Space Coast. But are you hearing anything at your location that this mission, which is originally scheduled for 12 days, could very well be extended?
Jim, as a matter of fact, you're quite right. They said, you know what, we think we've got so much to do that we may well decide to extend this for a July 21st landing, and so we'll see how that plays out as they go to resupply the International Space Station, the big stated goal and mission for Atlantis' final flight.
Michael Williams from Cape Canaveral tonight. Thank you.